Living Seed Media brings to you God's Word, which is His comprehensive equipment for changing lives. May the Lord impact your heart as you encounter His Word. For further inquiry or counsel, contact Peace House, P.O. Box 971, Boko, Benue State, Nigeria. Telephone numbers 0703 0363659, 0703 7681198. Email address lsmedia@livingseed.org, or visit our website at www.livingseed.org. Let us sit back and listen as the servant of God brings forth the word of life.
Academic excellence has to do with being outstanding scholarly and intellectually. The question we'd like to ask is, what shall we say of a student who makes first class or second class upper division degree or their equivalent, depending on the educational institution such students attended, by means of examination misconduct, or an undergraduate, master's or PhD degree student who dubs some other person's project reports, thesis or dissertation to graduate? Or do we talk about a lecturer or teacher who plagiarizes or fabricates papers for publication in order to earn promotion? Would we say they have excelled academically? No. Thank you. We have some foundational scriptures to consider. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 5, which we have read over and over at this congress, says that, or reads as follows: "And if a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully." And Proverbs chapter 22 verse 29 says, "Seest thou a man diligent in his business, he shall stand before kings, he shall not stand before mean men." We would like to consider some aspects of our academic pursuit as students, whatever be the name of the institution, college of education, polytechnic, monotechnic, university, whatever you have. There are some common denominators to our pursuits as students, and we'd like to outline them. We'll give some illustrations which may not be specific to your own circumstance. There's no way in such a presentation that we can capture what obtains in all institutions. So we'll just draw on some examples for our education. The first issue that should be of concern to us is registration. Obviously, registration is the evidence of your studentship. Permit me to tell you that once upon a time, in my own university, there was this student who was expelled actually, not rusticated. Was given red card, not yellow card, on account of examination misconduct. This lady appealed for reconsideration of her case. It was not favorable. She went to court, and on that ground, she continued to move alongside with her so-called classmates, and she spent perhaps 2 or 3 other years in the university. The relevant aspect of it is that at one point, in course of prosecuting the case, the lawyer pleaded that his client had been registered and was taking examinations steadily. And when the department was called to respond to that, they simply said, well, because of internet registration, it was possible for her to register on the internet. But as far as they were concerned at the level of the department, they were not registering that candidate. And of course, yours sincerely also taught that student 1 or 2 sessions. And I will always put a note by the side of her result, because I was not in any place to check her registration. But I knew that she was already expelled, and I was not in position to enforce the expulsion. So I will simply put there, so nobody will implicate me in future. Check registration status. To cut the short story long, or long story short, by the time she moved herself to the final year, she realized that she didn't have any basis, because nobody officially registered her. Even though she was taking examinations and all that, nobody released results to her. So what we are saying is that registration is the first evidence of your studentship. And that's what qualifies you to attend lectures, take exams, and all that. If you may attend lectures, take exams, like I just mentioned, without registration, nobody will give you results. So you are not validly a student. Remember, the passage we just read now, 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 5 says, if somebody strives for mastery, he must be done lawfully. I hope there is none of you, our students here gathered, who hasn't been getting properly registered in your various institutions. There are various rules operating in the various institutions, so we cannot capture them all, like I said. But I do know that most institutions talk about early versus late registration, sometimes with penalty imposed. And in some institutions, failure to register for 2 consecutive semesters may amount to the students being declared as voluntarily withdrawn. Of course, there are provisions for deferment of studies on grants of finance or health. If somebody cannot raise enough funds to maintain himself or herself in the university or college at a particular time, your institution may have provision for you to apply for permission to be allowed off. And that period will not be counted against you with regards to residency. But if you take laws into your hands and you go away for 1 semester, maybe nothing will happen to you. But by the time you are absenting yourself for 2 semesters, you will be considered to have voluntarily withdrawn. We should talk also about registration for courses. Some universities are advanced in terms of being digitalized. The students can do all their registration on the net. Some are still analog and digital. You understand? You carry your forms about, you still get registered on the internet. Some may be simply registered carrying their hard forms about. Whatever it is, follow the instructions in your institution. I know also that in some institutions, registration by proxy amounts to a misconduct. It's punishable depending on the gravity. Sometimes rustication for a semester or 2 and all that. I don't expect you to register by proxy, because apart from the penalty, what about the problems of registration done in error? When I endorse my students' forms, I often find that some of them will use wrong course codes and course titles, and they often cause problems to the authorities in terms of compiling the results. Just the current semester, I found 100 level students registering for what is supposed to be a 2nd semester course in the 1st semester. How do you explain that? And I found a number of them doing that. Please don't depend on your friends to view the courses you are to register for you. Go view them by yourself so as to avoid errors. There is also this practice that some students would like to hide away some failed lower level courses in the hope that they can escape them. In my own institution, we have found ways of arresting people with such intentions. As we'll be talking about cumulative credits and all that subsequently, each program in each institution we would expect to have minimum cumulative credits earned to be able to graduate. And when a student is short by 1 or 2, as we have often found out in my own institution, we find out that they were deficient and they will not be able to graduate. And unfortunately, somebody may be held back by just 1 credit unit course for a whole year. So please don't play pranks. Of course, there are digitalized universities, like I said, where the software for registration brings up the lower level courses you have failed. You don't need extra effort. You don't need your exam officers to do that for you. But not all universities are at that level yet. So we will counsel you to be sure to register for your lower level courses. Don't try to hide them away. The system has a way of detecting that. I have a very nasty story to tell. When I was exam officer some years back, there was this student. When I checked his records at the point of graduation, I discovered there was 100 level course, a chemistry course that he was owing. Rather than the student agreeing with me and registering for that course, he went up and down to see if he could circumvent that. Time will fail me to tell you the details. But what happened to him was that at the end of the day, he spent extra 2 sessions. And by the rule we were operating as at that time, if you spent more than 6 years, you only qualify for pass degree. Such that this student who should have graduated with a 2.2 degree ended up with a pass degree. I felt really sad. The day he met me and said he had finally resolved to register for that course. He thought I was meddling with his records. I even petitioned the head of department to protect him from me and all that. It's a long story. So please don't play pranks. You will pay for it at the end of the day. We do know that in some institutions, some courses are designated core courses, some are designated electives, some are designated prerequisites and all that. You need to familiarize yourself with whatever rules operate in your institutions. But we know that for core courses, you necessarily must pass them. For electives, some you may just register and have experience, whereas some are compulsory electives, such that once you register them or register for them, you must pass them before you can be allowed to graduate. And some courses designated as prerequisites are such that once you fail them, you will not be able to take some other higher level courses until you have cleared them. These systems operate in various institutions, and you do well to be informed about them. We must also talk about maximum allowable residency for each course. Generally, for universities, we know that the NUC guideline is that you are free to spend as much as 1.5 times the time normally required for your course of study. For example, if you are studying a course that requires 4 sessions to graduate, you may be allowed to stay on for 6 sessions and you will still earn your normal degree, unlike that draconian rule that I told of earlier on. But anything beyond that, you may be asked to withdraw on grounds of residency. I do know also that in some institutions there are provisions for adding or dropping courses. After you might have registered normally, perhaps you discover you can't cope with some courses and you would like to drop them, or you find that you could still accommodate a few more courses that you want to take. There are provisions for all this. Check out in your institution. Some institutions also require you to register in the health services before you can be considered validly registered as a student. I should like to talk about your accepting the courses that you have been offered if that is not what you originally intended to read. I know of situations where some students apply for courses and for various reasons they can't be accommodated in such, they are pushed to some others. I have found many generations of students in my own institution who are pushed into my own department, which is poorly subscribed to. It's like they don't want me to remain on the job. Because if I don't have students to teach, I'll be asked to go. So do you think they are being fair to me when they don't subscribe to courses in my department? So the system or the university authorities often push students to us who didn't choose our department originally. And sometimes we find that such students don't pay good attention to their studies. Sometimes when we get to interact with them personally, they say they didn't have the read such courses, so they didn't pay attention. And some damages would have been done, irreparable damages would have been done in such cases. So my counsel to you is that should you find yourself in such situations that you actually couldn't be accommodated in the course you intended to read, please settle down and trust that all things work together. Have we not come across that scripture in the course of this Congress? Who knows? God may be the one pushing you to that course which you didn't particularly ask for. Now we go on to talk about lectures and practicals and all that. We know also that in some institutions there are provisions that if you do not attend at least 75% of lectures and practicals, you do not qualify to write the end of semester examination. But should a good Christian student wait for such rules from all that we have been taught or instructed at this Congress about diligence and what have you, we would expect you to promptly and regularly attend to your lectures and practicals, and also to make efforts to sit in places where you will not be unduly disturbed by your colleagues. There are some practices that will help you in taking good notes. For example, not overrunning margins, using shorthands that you have come across in mathematics or chemistry classes, wherever. Devise your own shorthand so you can catch up with the speed of your lecturers, because not everybody teaches. Some lecture, they just talk to you and expect you to be able to pick the points and write down at a convenient speed. I also will encourage you to use colored pens or text markers and leave gaps when you have missed out some points that your lecturers have made, so that you can meet your colleagues at the end of the class rather than tapping them while still in lecture hall to ask what the lecturer said last time. While you are doing that, you missed something. The one you are tapping to know from has also missed some, and on like that. There will be multiple effect or chain reaction or whatever you call it. I should like to talk about careful handwriting. Some of you will tell me that you are dried fishes, you cannot be bent. I tell my students, if you think your handwriting is so bad, just go and buy a 2D exercise book and we can work together. I'll take you through. I'm not bragging that my handwriting is particularly good, but I think it's manageable. But if you have seen some of the things that I have seen and many of our colleagues here, you will know that some handwritings are terrible. And tendencies for lecturers when they are marking manuscripts. For me, when I come across very bad handwriting, I just put them aside. Because I make it a point of duty to try and read through every line, every sentence, to know where my students have made the points. I don't want to gloss over their scripts, but poor handwriting will slow me down. So I will create more time for them. And you know, it can be a problem depending on the makeup of the lecturer concerned. Okay? I counsel you also to do your assignments and submit same as and when due. Permit me to tell you the story of one of my students about 2 sessions ago. Because she had access to my GSM number, she called me up one morning and said she was not going to be able to attend my lecture. I said, fine. Then secondly, I should please tell her friend in that class to please do one assignment for her and submit. So I said to her, the first part of the message I accepted. The second part, I didn't hear you. Did I not hear her? I heard, but you know what I meant that I didn't hear her. Nevertheless, I went to the class, taught her mates, and at the end of the class, I called that friend of hers. I said, this is what your friend told me to tell you, but I told her I will not tell you. I said, so this is what you folks do. Of course, I do know. Because over time, I have come across student scripts where it will be so evident to me that they copied one another. For example, when I teach a statistics class, a take-home problem, there's no easy way. So what I do in such cases sometimes is to score 0 for all of them that I can find evidence that they copied one from another. Don't ask me how I know, but be sure I know. If you want to know, you can meet me, because I don't want to teach the whole lot of you some of these things. I had a very bad student who did assignment for his friend and stupidly wrote his own registration number for his friend. So what more proof do you require of me? I simply scored the two of them 0. Okay? So you do your assignments and submit. Don't engage in dubbing. There are certain situations that it's not a crime to work together. Actually, for such courses, I tell them, I cannot stop you from working together, but be sure that you know what you are copying one from another. Because in the exam, you'll be on your own. And if you simply copy it, and we find that's what happens, they simply copy and don't get to learn the stuff. Now we'll talk about studying. My counsel is that you devote more time to courses with heavier credit units. What did I say? Devote more time to courses with more heavier credit loads. If time permits, we will be illustrating how to compute your GPA or CGPA for purposes of those who might not be aware of such, where your institutions use such system to classify you for degrees at the end of the day. But I would expect all of you students to know what system operates in your institution and to be able to compute your own grades. Again, regarding studying, we advise that you seek help from your fellow students or lecturers where you have difficulties. Yesterday, one of our instructors talked of the good olden days where there were tutorial masters. I enjoyed a bit of that also. But I know that there are some Christian groups who, in the absence of tutorial masters and all that, organize tutorial groups for their members. I think that is a commendable thing. But such should not be turned to gossip groups. You understand what I mean? You may have a student at 200 or 300 level who is very good in some 100 level courses, which usually pose problems to fellow students, and they are organized to teach them in groups, and that is very good to do. But nothing stops you from meeting your colleagues one-on-one. But please be sure you don't give room for the devil to do some unintended things. We will counsel you to avoid time wasters, including frivolous visits, TV, movies, extra cool practices, and all that. They may not necessarily be sinful, but they could be weights. You remember we discussed about weights in course of these Bible studies and things. They may weigh you down. When you should be studying, you go visiting people. You waste your time, you waste your friend's time. Or you engage in watching Man U, Chelsea, you are a fanatical fan and all that. There is time for everything. We would counsel you to also use daily timetable to plan the use of your time. Procrastination, they say, is what? Theft of time. Tick says the clock. Tick, tick. What you have to do, good. So you also belong to old school. I thought we were taught in the old school. So new school also learn such things. So there is time for everything, according to Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1. A time to read, a time not to read. A time to visit, time not to visit, and all that. And the book of Proverbs contains a lot of instructions on diligence. We have highlighted a few of such that you could read up on your own. We will counsel you also to plan your activities on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, if possible. Do not allow your work to pile up unduly. It has been said that work expands to fill time. If you are given 1 week to submit an assignment, tendency is to say, I still have a few more days. I'll do it on Wednesday. If it is due next week, Saturday, you say, I'll do it on Wednesday. You have enough to occupy you between now and that Wednesday. Wednesday comes, tendency is to say, oh, I can't do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Please avoid such. We already advised on accepting the courses you have been admitted for, even though forced on you. My belief is that if any student has honestly gained admission to read any course of study, such a student has enough intelligence to successfully prosecute it. And the Lord God says, my thoughts towards you are thoughts of good, not of, to give you. God expects you to graduate, and in very good grades too. Oftentimes, students ask for area of concentration. I hope you don't indulge in such. Me, I tell my students, from A to Z, from first class to the last lecture we hold together. Even as a student, I know there were periods that I will be revising for exams, and somehow I will have this impression that certain things might not come out of exam, but I say, God, but please allow me to still master what is in there. On a serious note, even as a postgraduate student, that was the kind of thing I practiced. So don't bank, don't do like poop betters, who will say, last year the examiners brought the questions this way. They normally repeat questions, so the questions will come this way or that way. Even when it's the same set of lecturers who has told you they cannot change their patterns of questioning. And in some institutions, the lecturers are even changed from one session to another. While it is not an offense or crime for you to practice with past question papers, it is not good for you to bank and hope that certain questions have always come out in certain patterns, so you can be sure they will come out in your own time. We talk about examinations. Some say that examination is not a true test of one's ability. That may be true, but no substitute has been found yet for examination. And you cannot be adjudged to have gone to, to be ready for the next level of study if you have not been tested in some way. Even in spiritual things. Don't we know that testing is God's means of getting us to the next level in our spiritual growth? So, we should not be afraid of exam. Exam is normal. But we know also that the composition of the exam varies from one institution to another. Composition in terms of the grading system. In some places, the end of semester exam is 100%, whereas in some others, there's what is called continuous assessment, which may take as much as 30 to 40% of the grading for that exam. And in some disciplines, the continuous assessment may even carry as much as 60 or 70%, the reverse of what you know as continuous assessment. So there's no hard and fast rule about it. And your continuous assessment, the lecturers at liberty to announce to you they will give tests, not to announce, to give you take-home tests and all that. There's a particular course I taught last session, and there were certain things that I considered relevant to the exam. I won't tell you details for reasons of time. But it so happened that two of us taught that course, and I couldn't give any formal test to my students. I simply fell back to those little things that I was testing in them as the lecture series progressed. I had marked them, hoping to take such back to class and correct their errors. But since they wouldn't give me time and the semester was exhausted, I fell back on this for their continuous assessment. Do you think I did well? I think I did. Maybe you didn't think so. The examinations could be of various types. Some could be essays, some could be objectives, OBJ, some filling gaps, and whatever it is, you must face exams. That's the critical thing. But we must emphasize that you need to read through and follow instructions properly. For example, students are often told how many questions to answer in all, how many to answer from each section and all that. And again, don't suppose that the instructions will be static. The same set of instructions will apply that happened last year, will apply this year. Even if they will be the same instructions, what stops you from viewing the instructions properly to be sure you are correct? In assuming many students have made a mess of themselves. Also, we do know of situations where students will be told to start answering each question on a fresh page, or not to write on their question papers, writing the number of questions they answered in the order done in the space provided on the cover page of their script, and all that. They all have their places. In my own department, we more or less have a tradition that no single lecturer teaches a course alone for various reasons. It has its own advantages and disadvantages we were not in position to examine here. Okay? But let me tell you that when you mix my question on one page with my colleague's question on the same page, you are asking for trouble. Because some of us have developed the habit of putting page totals, and if the person whose question is on top there marked and put carelessly, I will say carelessly because it's not ideal, put your score at the bottom of the page, whatever you have written for the other lecturer, which is half of that page, you are most likely to lose the score for that, because tendency is for that lecturer to suppose there was nothing relevant to him there. So there are many implications which time will fail us to discuss fully. But we talked about writing your registration or matriculation number very clearly. You may not believe me, but when I tell you a story here, except I tell you story, that one you will know is a fiction. But other stories I tell you are things that I have experienced personally. Sometime I taught a course and found that two students' numbers coincided perfectly. And I went to investigate. And I discovered that in one case, a student whose number should have terminated with 3-2, he wrote 2-3. Did you follow me? Somebody who should have ended his number with 2-3, wrote 3-2. Fortunately for him, because there was that coincidence, I went to investigate and discovered his right number, because he indicated on the attendance sheet the correct number, and I was able to rectify that. But if there were no coincidence of two numbers like that, I would simply have been misled to record 3-2, and that student wouldn't have had any grade, and he will come back to ask for correction to his result and all that. We found so many of such cases. Again, while the system may correct such errors, the student would have lost out a lot. Except these days of computerization of results. In the days where we kept sheets of paper, if correction is done to only one student's result, don't you suppose that result is likely to be lost somewhere? And when his transcript or her transcript is to be prepared, tendency for the people preparing the transcript is to look for the bunched results and simply reflect the incorrect results for him. And God helped that student that it was not failure grade that was recorded. Because if it was failure grade, once they meet failure grade and there is no indication of where you made good the failed grade, that is where you register subsequently and pass, nobody will give you that. At least in my system, they find it difficult to prepare transcript for such students. So there are a lot of things you lose when you don't do things right. I tell my students of little things that matter. Okay? We should talk about the choice of questions. When you write exams with essay questions, it is advisable that you look for questions that have many parts, not what I call or is known as all or none. Such all or none questions are such that if you know them, you may score 20 over 20 or 25 over 25. But you are gambling bad if you don't know them and you suppose you know or you knew, because you may end up scoring 0 over 20 or 25 depending on the maximum mark. Do you permit me to tell you that I have marked scripts or exam questions wherein students scored 20 over 20, and in the same class some scored 0 over 20, even when they are not all or none type of questions, even such that are moderated by external examiners, and nobody has queried me, because there are usually marking schemes that we follow in grading your script. Okay, so please be careful in choosing the right type of questions. I already talked about legibility of your handwriting. We should talk about your maintaining good speed when you write exams. You need to maintain good speed. You need to allocate your time properly. Don't spend all your time on the questions you know you can write very well. The little you write on the difficult questions may earn you such marks that you cannot imagine. Okay? I should also advise you to be organized. Be organized in the sense of outlining what you need to write upon when you are writing an essay. Sometimes we find students repeating themselves unnecessarily. They would have made a point upstairs, 1 or 2 paragraphs below, they repeat the same thing. Because I had some experience in marking WAEC, whatever you call it now, we were taught in those days that when you come across points like that, simply arrow up. Because students may protest. I will come to that hopefully, if time permits. That you have opportunities of protesting or petitioning against the grades that you have been awarded in any course, if you are so sure of yourself. So, when you make such careless repetitions in my own course, what I simply do is arrow up, so that in case you petition, whoever is going to review my marking will know that there is something to look up. To check up there. You already made the point and I awarded you the grade. Okay? You should also start with easier questions so you can gain some speed. Don't start with the more difficult ones that could waste your time. Don't hurry out of examination hall. Don't cancel any question answered until satisfactorily replaced. Because what you have cancelled in error, you may find you didn't have time or you don't have time to replace properly. And if you had left uncancelled, you would have earned some marks. You shouldn't also discuss past examinations when you are still expecting some other papers ahead, because they could demoralize you. Even if you have performed so wonderfully well, you would have wasted some time discussing what is past. Remember what Paul said in Philippians chapter 3. What did he say? He left behind whatever was past and did what? Pressing on. So be more forward looking than discussing the papers that are past. They have a way of demoralizing you. Do not read in isolation, because there could be information to pass round that you will miss out if you read in isolation. You should also monitor changes in examination timetable. It is not good to modify examination timetable, but they do occur for various reasons. And of course, I don't need to tell you to avoid examination misconduct, which come in various forms. I have some of them listed there because I don't expect you to practice them. We will not waste our time there. Having written exams, we expect you to be graded. Not so. Depending on your system or the system in your own institution and discipline, to earn an A grade may be 70 and above, 70% and above, B 60 to 69, C 50 to 59, D 45 to 49, E 40 to 44, and F is anything 39 and below. I tell you, 39 is not the same thing as 40. Some of you will say that lecturer was wicked. That's where your continuous assessment and the like come in. Whereas some may be generous to help you to cross over from 38, 39 to 40. Don't expect anybody to adjust 59, 69 for you to help you get to the next higher grade. It's not often done. Now, depending on your institution, if you score A, it might be awarded 5 points. That is in the grade GPA system, grade point average, or CGPA system. In such systems, A is awarded 5 points, B 4 points, C 3 points, D 2 points, E 1 point, F 0. And for the final grading, there's what is called cumulative grade point average, such that what you earn in one semester is added to another semester and another semester till you get to the end of your course of study. And the overall grading is such that if you want to make a first class, you would be required to have made not less than 4.50. Again, I should tell you that 4.50 is not the same as 4.49. Did you hear me? You may say, is it not just a difference of 0.01? These people are wicked though. If you know how CGPA system works, you will know that it's a lot of effort. So if you want to earn 4.50, you start from your first year. Because in the GPA system or CGPA system, it's often easier to come down than to climb up. That's not to discourage anybody. We have seen people improve over time. There's a little space there below your handout, I guess. Can you quickly draw some 9 columns for me? You know what columns are? Quickly draw 9 columns, because I want to dictate some things to you. Earlier on, I had mentioned that you should pay a little more attention to courses with heavier credit units, because they have implications for your grading eventually. Have you drawn them? The first, okay, you have drawn 9 columns. Now do some 3 or 4 rows for me. 3 or 4 rows. Ignore the first 2 rows on top and come to the third and fourth rows, put X and Y in the first column. And then on top, label that column candidate. We are going to be using candidates X and Y for illustration. The next column, have you done that? Am I too slow? I said column 1, head it for me, candidate X, Y. We have two candidates we are illustrating with. Then when you get to the second column, the first row, put MTH101. MTH101, that's a course, isn't it? Math 101. And then the second row under it, put 4, which is the credit loading. Did you do that for me? Next column, which is column 3, put CHM111, which is chemistry 111. And under it, put 3, which is the credit loading. Don't let any of the things you are writing jam with the rows containing X and Y yet. Okay? They jammed. Hey, yeah, sorry. I told you to write in column 1, third and fourth row, X and Y. If you followed my instructions properly, you wouldn't be in error. It is from column 2, I said you write Math 101 for the first row of column 2. And then under that, you write 4, being the credit unit. Column 3 now, write chemistry 111 and 3, figure 3 there, meaning the credit unit. Column 4, write bio 101, bio 101 with a credit unit of 2. Then the fifth column now, write GST 101 with a credit unit of 1. We have filled the first 5 columns. Not so. Now, for candidates marked X, put under Math 101 a grade of A20 in that cell. You know, you are all computer literate, aren't you? So you know what a cell is. I'm partly analog, partly digital. So when I say something not quite like you understand it, you should understand. Have you filled in that first cell under column 2 corresponding to X, A20? The reason I said you should put A20 is that a score of A is 5 points. Did you not agree? 5 times 4, 20. Now you know. The next column for candidate X, put B12. Have you put B12? Next column, put C6. C, letter C, with figure 6. And then under GST 101, put F0 for that candidate. That candidate doesn't like GST 101. Too bad. No wonder the grammar is bad. Now for candidate Y, I will not give you all those headings anymore. Just fill in the cells for me. For candidate Y, put F0 under Math 101, F0. Under chemistry 111, put C9. C9 under chemistry 111. Under bio 101, put B8. And under GST 101, put A5. Agree with me or disagree quickly. These two candidates scored the same number of A, B, C, and F. Yes or no? Thank you. These two candidates carried the same credit unit for the semester, being 10. So put after GST 101, put TCC, meaning total credits carried, 10 for them. Then you will notice for the next column, being TCE, The first candidate X failed GST 101. That is 1 credit. So how many credits did he earn? 9. Put 9 there. But for candidate Y, he failed Math 101 being 4 credits. So how many did he earn? 6. Now you sum up those other figures that were attached to the letter grades. You will find the total points for candidate X is 38. The total points for candidate Y is 22. Not so? So you put TPE for me as the heading of that column, being total points earned. Finally, the last column, the heading is GPA, which is simply computed by dividing total points earned by total credits carried. Total points earned by total credits carried, which will come to 3.80 for candidate X and 2.20 for candidate Y. If you are if you agree with the grading system that we mentioned earlier on, assuming this were the final CGPA for the two candidates, what would be the class of degree for candidate X? 2-1, second class upper. What would be for Y? That candidate Y is likely to be third class, not even 2-2. But did they not earn the same numbers of A, B, C, and F? But their differences occurred in the credit loading of the courses where they earned those grades. So not all A's are the same. Did you hear me? You will need to pay attention to this. And that was why I counseled you that you should pay more attention to the courses with heavier credit loads, even though they may be more difficult, because they have implications for what points you earn at the end of the day. Sorry we didn't put that illustration there, because I had assumed most of you will be familiar with the computation, but it came to my attention that some might not be. We should go on to talk about some issues of academic standing. And the first issue we like to mention is that in some institutions there is this probation status which is awarded to students whose cumulative grade point average at the end of a particular academic session is less than 1.00. That student is placed on probation, meaning that the student has one more session to improve and get the CGPA to go beyond 1.00. If at the end of the following session the student still falls less than 1.00, the student is asked to withdraw on the basis of poor academic performance. In some other cases, students may be asked to withdraw. For example, in my own institution, we have a provision such that in the first semester of entry, if a student scores 0.50 GPA or less, that student is advised to withdraw, because we have modeled it, and it has been proven that such students can never graduate without getting withdrawn eventually. So it's better they are advised to withdraw quickly. In my own institution again, if at any point in the course of study a student lands himself in CGPA of 0.70 or less, that student is also advised to withdraw, because it has been modeled and proven that they may not come out of withdrawal even if they are allowed to stay on. But the good thing is that if you are asked to withdraw from one course of study, depending on what operates in your institution, you may be able to latch on to some other courses of study. So don't suppose your own is finished, because sometimes some of us enrolled for courses we are not endowed to prosecute successfully, and we run into problems. When you change course of study, you may find where to fit into. We should highlight some aspects of planning. Some of them we already mentioned in passing. We talked about planning, which has to do with allocation of your resources. We talked about how you should plan on daily, weekly, and monthly basis. You don't have all that you require. Human wants are unlimited, so you must have a scale of preference. I hope my economics is still sound. You must be determined also. Like I said, if you legitimately got admitted into the course of study on your own merit, we expect you will be able to finish up. So don't let the devil intimidate you. I recently met a student in my institution who said every time exams are approaching, the devil will be suggesting that he must fail, he must fail. He never saw himself as a graduate, but as a primary school student. Such will not be your lot in Jesus' name. So be determined, be self-controlled. You know, in the university, you have freedom. Nobody wakes you up to go for lecture or go for practicals. You could choose to sleep 24 hours a day. You need discipline. Okay? And God has helped us in course of our Bible study. We talked about the discipline of an athlete. And since we're like athletes who are running, we must demonstrate discipline. Of course, training. Attending lectures and all that, they are part of your training. But in all this your training, add computer literacy. In all your training, add computer literacy. Don't ask me whether I'm computer literate. Because the requirement for me, I have escaped many things that you won't be able to escape. So you can, if you are not literate at this point that you are, your next holiday, go and enroll for computer literacy. Of course, you must feed well. I hear students talk of 100, 101 and all that stuff. Some of you are saving money for want, not your need. The allowance you are given, use it to feed well. Because as a student, you need a lot of energy. Okay? So feed well. And of course, you must remain focused. I just want to remind you of the illustration that the keynote address speaker gave us yesterday. You still remember that illustration? The young king didn't see anybody on the left or right, whether they were cheering him or be focused. And talking of focus, don't let anybody tease you and give you impression that you are inferior because you are not reading engineering. You are not reading elec. And so you are an inferior student and all that. Time will fail me to tell you stories of some students I have encountered along that line. A teacher is not an inferior person. It's not inferior to a banker, an engineer or a doctor and whatever. We have different callings. Okay? Time is running out fast. But I must talk about some ancillary matters. Some things that are not immediately related to your academics but are necessary. One of them is writing your name properly. I already talked about writing your registration or matriculation number properly. I don't want to waste time. But some of you probably have encountered problems which suggested or which indicated to you that how you write your name is a matter. It matters a lot. I don't have all the time. Please clearly indicate your surname. And there are systems principles by which you can write your surname if you are not guided. Some forms you feel say surname first and all that. I don't take surname, that the one you write first is the surname. You either capitalize your surname or you underline it, or when you write it first you put it comma. But when Oyibo man says surname or the surname is the last name. This is particularly important for those of you who are in final year and will be writing project reports. And you come across standard text and you suppose that the first name mentioned in the reference where you have 3 segments of an author's name mentioned is the surname. That's not right. The last one in a standard text is the surname. Well, ask your lecturers if you are in doubt. Okay? I don't want to tell you of specific examples of people who have run into problems. And there's one of them, one of us around here who told us his story. I won't call his name out. Now, what about record keeping? It is important for you to keep records of your documents, your registration forms, your clearance forms, whatever it is that you have done in the university. Open a file. You don't ever know when you will need to refer to such. I found cases of students coming back for their certificates and not being able to trace their clearance forms and running into difficulties. You make applications for corrections to your results and you can't lay your hand on copies of such applications and all that. They have implications for you. I forgot to talk about petitioning in regard to grievances. If you feel offended that you have been awarded grades below what you expected or what you thought you had worked for in a particular course, there are procedures in various institutions, but be sure you are conversant with the procedure in your own institution. As we were watching the drama yesterday, I sat close to one of our elders, and he told me that in his own university, which happens to be my alma mater actually, that there was a protest by a female or so, and when it was investigated, it was discovered that the lecturer shortchanged that student, and that lecturer was dismissed from his job. Did you hear me? So don't be intimidated by the likes of Professor Williams that we saw in the drama last night. If you are a very sound student, no male lecturer will mess up with you easily. It is when you are a borderline student, and even in such cases, there are procedures for handling them. Okay? I know that going by the rules in virtually all institutions, sexual harassment of females is not tolerated. But unfortunately, some of you play into the hands of male lecturers by not doing your work as at when due. Like we said earlier on, when you go submit your assignment at awkward time, aren't you giving room for a stupid male lecturer to begin to make overtures to you? When you go visiting a male lecturer in his office at odd time, all alone by yourself as a female, you are asking for trouble. So don't do certain things. But should you still have genuine cases, look around for mature Christians. There are ways of getting such problems solved. Okay? I should encourage you to observe your institution's rules and regulations. If you read those references, they would indicate to you that it is good to observe. You may want to add also Romans chapter 13 verse 3. Romans 13:3. We are not unaware of cases where some students have been framed up in some institutions. Some people are sent after them to implicate them for whatever reasons and all that, but God will deliver you in Jesus' name. There are dress codes, there are hostel rules and all that. Please observe them. In conclusion, I want to tell you that you must accept responsibility for whatever happens to you. You are responsible for whatever you experience academically and otherwise in your institution. Don't shift blames to others. Don't find scapegoats. And I want us to quickly read a few verses of scripture so we end up our discussion. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 particularly. You can read Hosea 10:12. Says, break up your fallow ground. It is time to seek the Lord. Sow to yourself in righteousness and all that. Let us read Ecclesiastes chapter 12. We have a few instructions that will be helpful to us there. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13 to 14 says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Okay? And verse 1 to 7 says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds turn after the rain. In the day when the keepers and so on and so forth, you can read them. Finally, Matthew chapter 6 verse 33 says, seek ye first and And thank you very much. Before I take my leave, there's a chorus that I like so much and I would want to sing. I hope I'll get it right. There's an old school way I sing it, and people tell me there's a new school way of singing it. I can live a clean life in a dirty society. Jesus can help me live a clean life. So you know it. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you for listening to the old school chorus.
By God's grace, on Tuesday next week I'll be writing a paper. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to be writing what they call open book. And as a Christian, with what I've been taught all this while, I felt it is being, it's legalizing malpractice. So I want to ask, if a lecturer say, come with your ammunition into the exam hall, am I free to do it as a Christian?
My response is that it is very, very legitimate to conduct open book examinations. Are you with me? It depends on your discipline and the nature of the course. Since it is the examiner who says come with your books, there's nothing criminal there. There's no offense there.
Second one, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Please just go straight to your question. No preamble, no greeting, nothing. To save us peace.
Sir, in the case that a student didn't pass some prerequisite courses and the student changed to another department and the reg number wasn't changed, and now some lecturers stigmatize the student by making him feel that it's a carryover, and they don't mark his script just like they mark others. So what can this student do?
It is your right, okay, to change course once the system allows it. Again, we may not be able to treat each case here. We can only talk of principles. If you will speak to some senior Christians on the staff there, they will know how to. And you have your head of department, you have your dean and all that to help you. Whether or not they are Christians, it is their duty to do. But you have added advantage where they are Christians because they are likely to take their jobs more seriously. Just please seek counsel. And don't be ashamed that you have had to change course. I alluded to that in the course of my presentation. Sometimes we are not well endowed for certain courses we have chosen to read. We may gain admission and find that we cannot cope. The best or the better thing to do is to change course of study. So it's not a crime. Don't be intimidated. Okay? Let nobody intimidate you. A medical student was going to be examined orally, and as she sat before the examiner transferred aggression to her for whatever reason and began to be hostile to the point of asking her to go out. And the young lady said, "No, you can't send me out. You must examine me. You have not asked me a question which I couldn't answer. So on what basis are you sending me out?" Listen, it is not arrogance when you confront your lecturers. You should not be intimidated. Actually, part of the things I had in mind to tell you is not to allow any lecturer intimidate you. When you are standing on a firm foundation, on firm ground, you'll be able to look your lecturers in the face politely. Just like the Hebrew children said, "O king, we will not be careful to answer you in this matter. Our God is able to deliver us, but even if he will not, we are ready to damn the consequences." So please, don't be too timid don't be timid at all before your lecturers or examiners. So long as you're on the right ground, you have some inalienable rights as students. But you must be sure you are standing on correct grounds. I think that's the much we can take about that.
It's no more news that some lecturers offer students fake admissions, even in a genuine university. Now, a student that is offered a fake admission and is in he has been given everything, the registration, everything seems to be authentic. And the students now got to 400 level, and it was now discovered that the student has been offered fake admission by some lecturers. Now, the university authority now discovered that, and they expel those students and sack the lecturer. Now my question is, whose fault is it? Is it the lecturer or?
You should be asking the institution,
sir,
that sanctioned both the students and the lecturers, because both of them were guilty. Listen, we have just read scriptures telling us that an athlete strives lawfully if he must win the prize. If somebody gains admission by backdoor, is it wrong to throw that same student, to graduate that same student through the back door? But there are legitimate procedures for gaining admission. If you don't gain admission that way, be ready to be treated in such manner too. There are procedures. Please, those who gain admission by backyard or through the backyard know what they are doing, and don't be surprised that such things happen.
Praise God. I will ask one question. I said, my question is centered on examination malpractice. Sir, I would like you to comment on a situation where a typical examination paper was brought to a Christian student before the exam to solve, and coincidentally entering the examination hall, word for word of what is solved the previous night is what is solving in the examination hall. So my question is it malpractice?
That's a difficult one for me. In what company of other students was that student reading or studying? That wait, it's theoretical the way you have put it, and I will answer theoretically. If all the questions that came out in the exam were what the question, Christian students solved with some other students, is an accomplice or an accessory after the fact of examination misconduct. Give an example quickly.
A typical example is this. In my school, all year one students, first year students, they are to study French. Now, take for example, I reside in Cameroon. I know how to speak French very well. So because of that, my colleagues will just bring past question paper and say, please come and answer this question for us. How do we translate this? You know, and I translate everything for them. Then entering the hall, I see it. What I translated for all my colleagues, just yesterday night, is what we are solving today.
I know that it is possible for some aspects of questions to be expected by candidates. My position is that if out of 5 questions in the exam you solved all the 5 previously, then you are a fact after you didn't do it intentionally, but it has turned out to be, depending on the circumstances, if those involved were apprehended and you are implicated eventually, be ready for it. But if it was just a matter of, I mentioned in my presentation that there is no crime in practicing with past question papers, and if the course examiner is such that repeats past question papers, is it a crime? No. But if you particularly look for it and you got it, then you committed misconduct.
So I want to ask, having seen and known the importance of education in Nigeria or in our generation, and you talked about probation and withdrawal, so I want to know, to some students who cannot perform very well in their academics, you as somebody that is educated, are you now trying to say, or are you advising us that some people are not destined to be educated, or that some people, if they cannot cope with education, that they can go about doing some other things, whereas they have the interest to go to school?
Interest is not sufficient. And who has said that everybody must be a degree holder? Are you saying that somebody who has no university degree cannot serve God. The Bible study coordinator asked us some things. I can't remember how they were asked, whether those were the things that will take us to heaven or not. Listen, part of the reasons I elaborated on all this in the course of the presentation, that some of us are actually not endowed or well endowed for the courses we want to study. Many students want to be seen as reading engineering courses, elect. In my university, sometimes we have over 600 applicants, whereas the spaces are not more than 100. For God's sake, look elsewhere if you can't get fixed up in that course. And let us get it clear. Somebody who has read agriculture, by the grace of God, I read agriculture. I don't think I'm inferior to an engineer. What matters is that you be the best in the course of study. Do you want me to tell you that I used to have a friend and a Christian who read Yoruba language? And shortly after we graduated, the fellow has been in the UK. I don't know whether he has returned because I haven't been in touch with him for several years. He got engaged in School of Oriental Studies or whatever they call it in one university there. I have another who read history and has migrated to the US. I'm not saying being in the US is the best thing. No. I mean, some of us are happy being in Nigeria. But you see, the things that really entice some of you to reading some courses which are not really, you are not endowed for and are not God's will for you, and you go, by all means you secure admission through the main door, back door, you get in there and you get checked out eventually. Go and take some other courses that you are more suited for. That's the point to make there. We don't all have to read the same course. If all of us read electrical engineering and we are putting all the bulb here, who will produce the food that we're eating? Who will drive the vehicles that brought you here? But you think the person who brought you in his vehicle is inferior to a graduate. That fellow is a professor in his own field, and you do well to regard him. Thank you.